So let's just get rolling. By the way, we're already recording. So good morning,
Okay,
Dave.
Yeah. Morning, buddy.
We don't wait on the walk. We're going for a walk. You start walking, you're walking. So we're already rolling. I'll give a quick little intro maybe, and then you can add to it. So Dave Hendriksene, Homeside Financial up in Greater Chicago with offices in markets throughout the country. You and I have known each other for a long time. I consider you a friend, also a bit of a mentor in the business. I learn from you every time I talk to you. There's some things I want to get into today, but I know that the group you manage is a big group, but not really a very big group for the amount of volume that is running through the division. Well over $1 billion annualized in volume. You guys have really crushed it, and I will say it so that you don't have to. Although you're not a credit guy, you're not looking for a pat on the back, but that incremental growth and volume has not been just because of the market that we're in. It's a lot of just old school blocking and tackling that I know you focused on over the years. But so anyway, that's Hendriksene. Anything you want to add to that, Dave? What I leave out?
No, I think what you left out is, kind of the job that you've helped to get us to this point, right? Like you did leave that out. So, I would consider you a friend more than a partner, or both, I guess you could say, friend and partner. But it's been a really cool journey from, I think I met you in maybe 2009.
Right when the world was coming to an end, right?
Yep. And, really not knowing what direction. And I think you guys separated yourself because you listened versus, other firms that were just calling us from a standpoint of, hey, what's your production? Who can you bring? You kind of had a ability to say, look, Dave, what are you really looking for? Is this a culture fit? And even places that we've been, and we haven't been many places, but even places where I've had to call you and vent and say, look, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is the right place. And we did come to that position at one point where I called you and said, hey, look, I'm running into some trouble here. So I appreciate you as a friend more than anything.
Well, I thank you for that. I think what that also proves, I was on a call just before this where I was talking to an individual about the opportunity to do business with people that you like, with people that you have some commonality with. It makes the tough times so much easier, I guess, because you know that you're dealing with a partner versus a vendor. And I know that's really how you've built your business over the years, is very much from a relationship perspective. The numbers matter, the KPIs matter, the metrics matter. We're not doing that. You're not running a nonprofit, and neither am I. But you got to enjoy what you're doing. Talk to me a little bit about how you got started in the business and how you've seen things change from that period of time to where we are today.
Yeah. So, and I know a lot of people would be amazed by this with my lack of organization, but I actually started as an appraiser. So
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I don't know if you did. And I did that for about 2 years till I realized, like, wait a second, these people are making all this money yelling at me because I'm not hitting a value. Why don't I join that side, right? So then went into wholesale as an AE, and then truly by just a blessing, John Gibson, who was one of my mentors, moved me from wholesale to retail in the banking world called World Savings at the time, which was eventually acquired by Wachovia. Looking at 08, 09, didn't have a ton of experience in retail and kind of thought, oh boy, we got a problem here because we don't really understand the loan process. We understood it from the wholesale side, not the retail side. We didn't have a ton of production. We didn't really know what it meant to be a top producer or a top producing branch. We had a couple LOs in there that did pretty significant volume. They knew a lot more than us. And it really was just listening, developing, calling AEs that dealt with the retail side more and helping them really coach us up. So it started there, and then it's just kind of evolved, right? I think back in 2011, 2012 at Main Street Financial, it dawned on me, our business model didn't work, Eric. It didn't, right? So I had to really take a step back and say, why can't we get past 150 or 200 million? And the answer is you would have LOs, branch regional managers coming in and looking at the Smith or Jones file, right? And that would take up your whole day. And then you look and you say, we're not growing at all. We're stuck in the $200 million idle here. And so what we did over the last 7 or 8 years is really just develop a process, right? So now our process, everybody stays in their lane, and it's allowed us to really move the organization forward. And I think this year, hopefully, our team we should be around $1.5 billion, $1.6 billion, and that's with the existing people, not including the recruits we're talking to right now.
Right. And go back to something there's a couple things I want to go back to. We're in an industry, mortgage origination, where I think, I have no real number, but there's some huge portion of our industry that is stuck, but they're okay being stuck, because we're in an industry where you can be average and do really, really well for yourself financially. With people that you've managed and supported, and maybe even yourself when you were at Main Street or prior, and you were looking at how do we scale, how do we get to the next level? Is it that simple? Is that why people get stuck? Because it can be financially super rewarding, even being average? Or do you think there's other reasons why people tend to get stuck?
I think it's fear, bud, right? So if I really look at this, just got off the phone with a recruit, right? And, LOs, they get scared, right? They get fearful because they are making good money, and they're afraid to take a step back, and they're afraid to look, we're in an industry that I don't know how it got here, but if you're really a transparent organization, unfortunately, you're probably in the 5% range. The other 95% are just going to tell you what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. And people know that. And so they're afraid to take that dive, right? But helping them understand, what do you want to get to? Just because you're doing 70 or 80 million or $90 million, it doesn't necessarily mean your next step is a branch manager or regional manager, right? So there's a fear and there's a lack of transparency in this organization, right? And no one wants to have the tough conversation. And I get it. Let's just do simple math, right? A $50 million producer making 100 basis points in Chicago is making $500,000, right? You tell me they want to go to 400,000? They don't, but they may need to get to $1 million. And no one wants to tell them that, right?
So your thinking is that it's the fear of failure overcoming the motivation towards success, or even greater sustainability for that matter, because markets adjust. That's out of your control. When the market adjusts and you haven't worked on your business, you are going to drop back to 400,000 or 300,000 and then be forced to do something about it. So I think that's what I'm hearing, right? It's the fear of the step back versus the reality of, do I want to be in control of my business, or do I want to allow my company or the market to control that business?
Well, let me ask you this. I'll turn it back to you. How many non-producing branch managers do you talk to? You get them to a certain point, you get them in a cultural fit, and they say to you, look, I don't know who's coming, man. I don't know if I can make this move, right? And I think that non-producing manager needs to look at that truly, because sometimes we miss out. I've missed out. I've actually got, I would say, missed out on more opportunities because we've been so honest to say, hey, look, we think we just did it here locally with a group doing 30 million. I actually had to tell the branch manager, look, after talking to a few of your LOs, they're pretty happy. I think we should stay in touch. You need to stay where you're at, because if you join us, it's going to be a $250,000 pay cut for at least 2 years. And I don't think that's good for your family.
Right.
Now, owners of a company don't want to hear that, because they're pressing you on the matrices. Where are the volumes? But our thing is we want to just get to an island together somewhere, all of us, right? We've been together a long, long time. And it's been because of that transparency. And it's why we've never really lost any LOs or branch leaders that we haven't wanted to lose.
Yeah, no, that you bring up so many good points when it comes to the process of building out your team. We all call it recruiting because I think we haven't figured out another word for it. I don't, personally that I don't like that word recruiting when it comes to what it is you're trying to do with strategic growth, because ultimately, how do you recruit someone who already has a transferable book of business and is already making $500,000? And even if there's a couple things that could be improved upon, they don't think they need you. They certainly don't need a job. Like, they've already proven that they have a job and they're good at their job. I think back to the first time I ever heard the word recruit. It was in two places, and I know exactly what they were. Number one, it was when you're an athlete in high school and you want to be recruited, or you are being recruited by colleges to play whatever sport you play. Well, I went through that experience, but it's different because I was going to be making a change. I was going from high school to college. So a change was getting ready to occur and I had to decide where was I going to go. The other one was when I hurt myself and there was a chance I wasn't going to play ball in college. And my dad picked up the phone and called the local military recruiter and said, hey, he's going to have to go into the military because we might not be sending him to college.
Can you imagine Eric Levin out there? Oh my.
Protecting the country.
He's going to be trying to recruit people to his platoon.
Yeah, he would have the best platoon though.
He would.
Well, yeah. As I get older, I start thinking, boy, those benefits would have been nice if I could have made it all the way through. But that was my introduction to the word recruiting. Well, now fast forward. The people that you've built relationships with over the years, the ones that we support our clients in building relationships with, yes, we're recruiting them. But guess what? They don't need they're not looking for a job. It's completely different. We are relationship building. And then it makes me think the value of saying no. So to your point, to tell someone with total transparency, we're not good for each other. Let's shake hands and move on. And maybe the money and the time that saves you versus making a bad decision. Here's the other thing it does, and then I'll stop talking and let you comment on it. It creates trust, man. Whoever you just said that to trust you more than anyone because you're the first person that may have been totally transparent with them.
I asked him a question and he froze. Right? Which was great. And he said, that's a great question. When you want to get into leadership and be a branch manager and you're a top producer, here's the situation. Your top agent calls you, you have a closing blowing up at the table, and a $30 million producer who you're managing calls you, who also has a loan blowing up at the closing table. Whose call you taking? You got to take one. Whose call you taking?
What a good
right?
question.
And I think that really helps us focus on, is this person just wanting to be a branch manager making overrides? Or is this person really want to develop and teach and coach individuals how they got to become a top producer?
Right. So staying on that same topic, it makes me think again about, well, then how do you connect the dots in the industry when it comes to, quote, recruiting, if that's the only word that we have? Somebody help me come up with another word that will go viral and we can make it stick, but I haven't figured out one yet. So it's really easy to relate. Here's how you do it. When you first started off as an originator, and maybe you can chime in, and you had no book of business other than your mom and your dad and your sister and your brother and some family and friends that maybe would throw you a refi if they were in the position to do it. You did what? You went to agents that you had no relationships with. Maybe you did some data work to see who were the ones doing the most business in your market or who had the market share. And you walked in the door and you introduced themselves. And what did they say to you? I'm already working with a loan officer. I already have a relationship. And so you really then weren't recruiting that person anymore. You were doing what? You were establishing and building a relationship so that eventually they might throw you a deal. And then you had an opportunity to prove yourself. If managers would think of it the same way, the way that you do, that it's a process, it's not an event, it's a relationship, it's not a recruit, you put yourself not only in a better position to be successful, but to do what you've been able to do. You've proven the concept that retention stays super high and attrition stays super low.
Yeah. So from the retail standpoint, I never was an LO. And that's part of understanding that I don't know what they go through daily, which is a little different, right? Because again, everybody's saying, where's your recruiting process? Look, recruiting is not as important as retention. If you really want to use the R word, the retention is more important in this industry than recruiting, right? Yeah. You always got to be growing. But I think what our team's done a really good job of is, I've always said this, there's only 3 things that can ruin a partnership: greed, ego, or lack of trust, right? Everything else you should be able to get in a room and figure out, right? So if I understand, and my ego's not to the point where, look, I don't know what some of our people go through daily, but our leadership team is not built. We don't have a comp plan that says where we get in a room and everybody has to say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, to the partners, right? If we can just truly be transparent and somebody can say, hey, this doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. Then we just need to understand why it doesn't work. I think what I learned from you that was great is, hey, look, and I've used it. It's already all throughout our organization in a matter of 2 weeks. Are you calling me to vent? Are you calling for a solution? 2 different things. Right. And that was great advice. Just you as a friend telling me that. And it hit me like, why aren't we using this? And it's already implemented throughout the entire organization. And sometimes they do need to vent. And when they vent, they're going to say stuff that's wrong. And I think leaders and owners have a tendency to where they'll just hold that against them for life. And they shouldn't, right? They were
That's the
fired
good
up.
stuff, man.
They
That's
were
where the good
fired
stuff
up.
is, yeah.
It is. So, and they're going to be honest with you, right? And we had a situation yesterday where a regional leader got pretty pissed. I don't know if I can use that on this podcast, but they
Use
did.
it. Yeah.
And really misspoke. And as we got through it, he backtracked and said, hey, look, I completely misspoke. That was way wrong to say that to you, Dave. I don't feel that way. But I said, hey, look, I think it's a great thing. I'm never going to hold it against you. I love that you will share that with me, right? But again, going back to recruiting, retention, how do you keep people happy, right? And whether even your terms, hey, walk into another R word, the realtor's office for the first time. Look, I think it's just about sharing, right? Sitting in a room and developing culture, team, and sharing thoughts. This works, this doesn't work. We've got email chains that kind of shares great ideas amongst our team. Like, hey, I tried this worked, or I tried this social media platform, it didn't work. And I think that that's powerful. And I think that's why it's not me, Eric, it's our team. Our leadership is so good that for me, I'm just kind of along for the ride. I'm kind of like the sounding board, right? And I've really enjoyed Homeside. I mean, the partners have been phenomenal. It's unlike anything I've ever been a part of. It's a true support from corporate and really allowing us to just do what we do daily.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that. You know, you as you were talking about the conversation we had about I'm just venting, or I have a problem, I need you to help me solution, which are two totally different things. It makes me think of my dream scenario within our company. Well, there's lots of dream scenarios within our company, but there's one that, you ever watch the show Billions?
Yeah.
Okay. I want a Wendy Rhodes in our company. Yeah. And I honestly think every mortgage company should have a Wendy Rhodes almost in every branch, because so much of what we do, you know, you think about, I remember when I was putting myself through college and I had a personal training business. That's how I made money to be able to pay for school. I had a client that was a doctor, and she said, how do you sleep at night? It was a random question. And I said, well, I don't sleep well at all, but that's fine. I got plenty of sleep. She said, well, your serotonin levels are probably very low because you spend your entire day giving it out. You're motivating, you're encouraging people to get past that next hurdle or that next plateau. And you should take this melatonin or something that'll help your serotonin levels. Well, isn't that what loan officers do? It's what branch managers do. It's what you do. It's what the partners of the company do. We need like a Wendy Rhodes so we can walk into the office, slam the door, bitch and moan for about 30 seconds, and then Wendy Rhodes tell us what our real problem is. I want that at Model Match. I need Wendy Rose sitting next to me in the office.
That'd be nice, right? I'd rather be Axelrod with the private,
yeah.
But I like where you're going.
You be Axelrod, and I'll come visit you in the Hamptons.
Yeah. So to that point, right? Don't you think that's kind of what the branch leaders do right now, right?
It should be, but it doesn't. You do it, so you think it happens everywhere. But I do think that's a challenge in our industry. And we did a podcast with Casey at Zenix, and Casey's wonderful, and she's been doing this such a long time. She has a great perspective. But we talked about the role of the manager in the industry and how it really hasn't evolved very much, and the way that the industry motivates managers through compensation. And so to your point earlier, the manager gets more motivated to deal with this one loan versus to deal with something that's going to create value and can be replicated for the long term. So in that case, yeah, I agree with you, but I don't think it's happening as much as it probably should happen because of the way we generally motivate the manager.
Yeah, and that's where I think we've done a good job of allowing the branch leaders to be them, right? Everybody always wants to say, what's your company's culture? What's your company's culture? I think it's more about the team's overall culture, but I think you got to allow the branch leader to set the culture inside their office. And to say nationally that all of our cultures are perfect would be a lie on this point.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. I think there's coaching, developing. I got to be better in some, really, I got to be better to make sure we push them to a better culture. But also, we have some unbelievable cultures inside of our organization with leaders that truly, truly care about supporting and developing. But just because we're so big, I do think that some of our offices probably just look at it as a residual income. But
Sure.
guess what? If you look at the LO as a residual income, that residual income through time will just dwindle because you're not addressing what their issues are. And I think we have offices that do a great job of it. We have offices that probably need improvement. But overall, I think the culture is set by the branch manager, who I consider the wind road.
No, so what you're describing, Dave, is important because what you are describing is the family dynamic of an organization, right? So just like in our personal lives, we may fight with our families, whether it's our wives, our sisters, our brothers, our parents, whoever it is, and that's going to happen. It's human nature that that friction will occur, and you have to be in a position where you can solve that at a very transparent, as you say, level. And you have to be able to have that. It's that open door policy that we always talk about, right? My door is always open. Come on in. Let's work through these solutions. The worst thing that you could do is ignore the problem, right? You could turn your head to it. And then before you know it, 6 months later, you have a blow up and you're past the point of no return. And the best organizations have that family value to their culture where they truly act like a family. And that's super important.
Well, and look, man, the people work for people and with people, and people leave people. It absolutely works both ways.
Yep. And I think, it's not a recruit. It's not an LO. You're asking a branch manager, a loan officer to join your family, have their family join your family, and you're the one that's going to be in charge of making sure you provide for that family. You better be really good, transparent, and address all their issues. And back to your point, it's like, we all have the couples in our personal lives that we see, and their marriages are struggling, and they think, hey, if we go to therapy for 2 months, we're going to be good, right? But then to your point, 6 months later, they're not good, right? And it's because they didn't really identify the real issue. And that goes back to the recruit I was just talking to, right? What's the real goal here? Is it to get from a certain production to the next level of production? Or is it really to get into branch leadership, which is why I asked the question, right? And once you can identify what the true issue is in a relationship, in a family, then you can solve for it. Again, if there's not a trust in the marriage is done, right? And if you approach the loan officers, branch managers that way, you'll see a success. But too many people want to deflect. So in this instance, a top producer looking to make a move, wants to get into management, doesn't know how to get to that next level, the easy thing for the senior leader to say is, well, go look for an office. But that would just be like 2 months of therapy. Like, okay, I can get you off the process breaking down and have you go look for an office. Right. And then I can make my residual income on you while you're looking for that office. Look, that's not really who we are. And I had to ask the individual, are you running from something or are you running towards something? Because if you're running from something, I'm probably not your place. If you're running towards something, we're probably somebody you should consider.
Such good advice. That's a great quote, is running away from something or towards something. And you know from working with me and our team for years, we agree. Hey, I want to ask you a couple other questions and then we'll keep this one tight, but I'm going to have you back. We're going to do this again. You and I have already brainstormed on some other episodes we can do together. Tell me, something personally in my life that I don't think I've done a very good job of, and I've been looking for more opportunities. You have always talked about the value of mentorship. You provide that value to others, and you have absolutely acknowledged those that have provided that to you. John Gibson's a great example, and I know John. I'm a fan of John Gibson, both professionally and personally. Tell me a little bit about the value of that relationship and what you got from it in your younger, industry years, and then even to today.
Yeah, so I can tell you, started off as a mentor, has become one of my best friends, was in his wedding. And I think here was the difference with John, and it's translated, even though he may not know it, 14 years later, right? John was never the one to be jockeying for the corporate promotion. We've all had the bosses that they want to say whatever they need to say in a corporate environment to better their family financially, to get stock options or whatever it may be, right? When you went into John, it was really, truly, he probably still does it because he's ancient. So I hope he hears this. He has this yellow notepad to where he would sit there and truly, truly, there you go, right? So he would truly have this yellow notepad and he would take it out. And the very first time I met him, he said, tell me your issues. It's not going to affect your career. I was a branch manager in Barrington, Illinois, right? And now you're talking to your boss's boss's boss at the time. So you're like, I still got to play the corporate game. I'm in a bank environment, right? And he wrote it all down. And every time I met with John, from then on out, he would flip to that yellow notebook and be like, no, listen, you said this back then. It's okay if you changed your mind, or did we solve for that problem? So he really just showed me it's not about the money. It's not about jockeying for a promotion. It's not about being in good standing with ownership or the board or the CEO. It's about you, Dave. And I've always felt that way with John. And I hope we've tried to take that through our organization, right? To where we understand it's their family's issue. It's their problem. We need to solve for it, right? And I just think that that's what John did better than really anyone I've ever met with, because you might not always liked his answer, but you knew why he made that decision, right? And then, what we were going to do going forward. And I think what John was great at, better than anybody, and we've all had the leaders and bosses, when you were down, John would pick you up. So when you would be nervous walking into John's office because you didn't hit your corporate projections, you didn't hit your numbers, you didn't hit the volume, you're walking in with anxiety, and everybody will relate to this saying, oh my gosh, he's going to kill me. We really missed our target. Mm-hmm. He had an ability to pick you up, where he was also great at, when you came in with your chest out, you better be ready for the punch in the stomach, because he wanted to demand better out of you. Mm-hmm. He would not want to, he was great at recognizing and celebrating the successes, but when he thought you got out of your lane and your chest got out and you were kind of stuck on yourself, he was really good at centering you again. And I think that that's what we've really tried to provide our organization with.
Well, I'll tell you from the stories that I've heard within your group, it is happening. You have, and your team has taken those things and sort of paid it forward, so to speak. I'm always happy to pump up a friend. So if we're pumping up John Gibson here,
let's not pump him up too much, right?
Just a little bit. We'll get him on the podcast with you, and then you guys can battle it out.
Hey, Eric, I think within that, think about this, is because he's been such a good mentor, right? He's affected our organization more than he knows. People actually know John Gibson that have never met John Gibson. And I think that shows you back to what we're talking about. When an LO comes into a branch leader, a branch manager, that one conversation can impact that person. Who knows? That person may become a regional, a divisional, own a mortgage company someday, right? You have to approach every single one of those conversations like he did with that yellow notepad in Barrington.
Yeah. Yeah, you proved the value of listening also, right? He listened, he heard what you said, he retained it, and then he would be able to use it for you or against you when you walked back in the office 6 months later and had another conversation. One of the reasons why I wanted you to bring that up was that I think we all get caught up in working in our business and not on it as often as maybe we should. And the value of a mentor, the value of someone that you can trust, that's going to tell you the things that you need to hear, even if you don't want to hear them. In your case, it's John Gibson. I think is incredibly valuable. It also teaches an originator that they can have that same effect on a realtor partner, on a CPA, on an attorney, on a builder, on a customer, and those things do come back. I want to ask you one more question, and then we'll break for this one. 2020 was 2020. You call it what I mean. I don't even know what to call it anymore. Outside of the pandemic and the shutdowns and all of the things that were really impacting people in a super negative way, our industry rode a wave that was unlike any wave that I've seen in the 20 plus years that I've been doing this. What's on your brain going forward? What concerns you about what 2020 was, and then where maybe the industry is going forward. And then what are you also maybe excited about on a go forward basis?
So, yeah, I mean, 2020 was just unique, right? I mean, financially, volume, everything. I am concerned what's on the other end of this, right? We've never seen this. So I think Blackstone said, what, 16.5 million borrowers throughout the country can benefit from refinances now. So that pool's shrinking. And what I'm worried about is, did the LOs and branch leaders do the right thing? So did they just sit back and take the refis, or did they take the opportunity in this market to go out and establish realtor relationships? The other thing that really concerns me is, did they save, right? That's what keeps me up at night. Did our families inside of this organization save for probably something we've never seen? I mean, it melted down in 07, 08, 09 for executive leaders. There were no jobs. But there's people that killed it in those years too with the HARP loans, right?
Sure. Right.
So that concerns me. I don't know what's on the other end of this. And I think that it's like realtors right now. I just talked to a top producing agent yesterday. She said, Dave, what do I need to be doing? I said, look, the buying and selling opportunities, they're going to be there. Just let your team answer the calls. You know, we see delinquencies a little bit up right now. And I told the realtor, are you calling the banks? Are you figuring out how to get in the foreclosure and short sale department? And I think that turns into the LOs. We still have time today to develop realtor relationships, right? And I really hope we're doing that. So that would be the first part, because that's sustainable business. Builders, because you got lack of inventory, they think they're going to have the best year or the best decade since the 70s because of the baby boomers and the millennials. So, you know, are we establishing those relationships? And then two, and if you don't take anything out of this podcast, just save your money, save it, because the opportunity is going to be this. This industry will shrink. LOs, branch leaders, they will leave this industry, but those transactions are still going to sit on the street. And do you have an avenue to them?
I love it, man. Let's drop the mic there. Don't go anywhere when we hit the stop button. But hey, Dave, thanks for carving out some time today. I knew this would be fun. You and I could do this for 4 hours, man. But I'm no Joe Rogan. I've got no sponsors letting me go long form. So when that day comes, you'll come to my fancy studio.
I appreciate your guys' time as well.
This was great. Anything you want to get off your chest? Last seconds?
No, just stay at it, everybody. Stay at it.
All right, brother. We appreciate you, Dave.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
See you, man.
Bye.